Okay, here I'm going to be disassembling a 3080. I've got some tools staged here. This is a card cut. It's about 12 millimeters wide. I'm going to use this for scraping and paste application. Got my thermal paste, MX5. Have a small screwdriver. Have a little bit larger screwdriver. A razor blade hopefully I won't need. Take paper towels, tear them. Got some alcohol, just to 70%. I'll start by taking the back plate off here. I apologize for the audio quality. I have no idea what I'm doing in recording. All of these screws on the XC3 and I believe on the FTW are the same size. This has got a captured nut. You can just reach over. Well, excuse me, it's not captured. You reach in, just put your thumb on it, finger on it, whatever. My finger's currently holding it. Just unscrew it. It falls away. We'll take the screw out. Go ahead and put it back onto the nut. Just a little bit here. And we'll set that aside so we don't lose our nut. Same thing, got another one here. Just put some finger pressure there to stop the nut from spinning. It becomes free. We'll take our screw. Back into the nut. Couple twists. Back plate is free. You can set that aside. Now we're going for the core here. Use this bigger screwdriver. Start loosening them. Just a couple turns. Try to always go opposite sides. This is a magnetic screwdriver. It does help out. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and unscrew this guy all the way. And we're getting ready because it's gonna try and pop up. There it goes. This one I'm just going to hold down just a little bit here. We don't want this backplate spring going anywhere. Now it's free. I'll hold it. Go ahead and take this last screw out. You've got to be really careful with this backplate spring because it can twist and it can damage any number of the components on here, and that is the absolute last thing we want to do. Now we have the heatsink completely loose, but let's go ahead and take off this plate right here. We've got 3 screws, so it's a little driver comes in handy for. There's one. There's 2. Magnetic helps on that. There's 3. And normally that would be it, except for with this card I have got some zip ties here holding this back plate on. Let me get something to cut that. It's now free. Again, you will not have to worry about that. Go ahead and get rid of these. Alright, now let's go for the RGB connector here. This has already got a plate in it. So I'm going to put firm, steady pressure. It's not a race. It's already broken free. There it is some more. Okay. Now we're loose. Reach in here and grab that guy. He's unplugged. Now turn this guy around. And now we've got these guys. These are easy to break. Go ahead and just push on it. Again, don't have to rush it. Just a little bit of wiggle. And the blue one just broke. This is broke. That's how easy it is. This card's been apart several times. Set the heatsink aside. We'll go to the card here. You can see we've got good thermal paste application. And we'll start cleaning it. Let's take our little plastic card here. We'll go for the core first. Lightly scrape it. Do not use any kind of metal. This is the raw silicon. Just trying to get the larger pieces of it. This is still really fresh. Some X5 is pretty good paste, but it is a pain to work with. It's very, very sticky. Got the memory. And it's pretty similar for thermal pads. If there were thermal pads, you could take this card and just kind of go under the edge of a thermal pad, and then the thermal pad's going to be right here, and you just kind of keep going like that, and you can actually pull off a thermal pad in a manner where it can be reused, assuming that the cooler didn't destroy it when it came apart, such as happened here. And this is looking at the witness marks. This has had a really good contact with the inductors. And of course, we know the VRM thermal pad is good. Still stuck there. Got more witness marks on this guy. We got witness marks for the VRMs here. Good contact. Go back to cleaning. The more you can scrape off, the easier your life will be. Not trying to kill it, just kind of putting a little bit of pressure, letting it scrape the surface. Just pushing along. Not out to harm anything. I'm just trying to take this and just carefully wipe it. There's caps all around the core. So you can see those right here. Do not harm those. Just using the corner here and just trying to scrape at it. I'm not touching the caps. You'll be able to feel them if you are. Probably should have demonstrated this with a older card, not one that's just been into about 3 weeks ago. Some asshole using his horn. Too lazy to walk to the door. Got my finger on the fingernail on the edge of the core there. Do the same thing right here. Just kind of scraping away. You can see the paste disappearing. Do the same thing right here. Not scraping those capacitors. I'm in front of them. Behind them. use a Q-tip, dip it in the alcohol, and then get the bulk of it off there. Just gonna just lightly rub on these. Really don't need to be this thorough on it, but main thing on the memory is you want to make sure that there's no more thermal pad remaining on it. Again, this didn't have thermal pads, but nice flat surface. On cleaning, using the card, you can actually get between the memory pretty easy if you want to go that far. Put it in there, scrape away. And don't force it. You don't want to force anything working on a GPU. Now if you just got to keep scrubbing a little bit longer, just scrub a little bit longer. That is just about good enough. See what's going on here. Sometimes you'll have oil left from the thermal pads. You can clean it if you want. Not a big deal. Here's the thermal pad. Just use this guy. Get up underneath them. And we're scraping the inductor. And just like that, pad is off. Toss it aside. I've already inverted this VRM thermal pad. It was making good contact. Let's get the thermal pad off of here. Stuff is sticking good. There it is. Up. This pad is still good to go. Swap those places here. And just keep opening it up, wiping it off. alcohol on paper towel. Just kind of wipe. I'll go ahead and remove the plate. Just try and get a fingernail under a corner. There we go. And it's under. Just start lifting up a little bit. Okay, we're free on 3 sides. All we could do is, besides being a little bit of booger, so just put our card under there, and there it is. Now we'll go ahead and clean that off. Don't need to do it on camera. I will be back. Alright, we've got inspect the plate here. You have your clean card. Nice and clean. Take the plate. Memory recesses down, flat, up. Set it on. Then we inspect it. Good here. Over here, you can just kind of press it, get a feel for it. And you can inspect it. This is a 3080 with 10 gigs. So you can see there's firm contact on that RAM. We can see right in here, we've got firm contact. Another test that can be done, take something flat, set it across the core. And the core should stand proud of the plate. If for any reason the plate is holding off this little test article from the core, do not proceed. From the side here we can see the plate sits just under our little test gauge here. Contact is good. Examine the board. On EVGAs you've got these caps. Should be clearing it right here. There should be no other contact. Sits on there nice. It's got a little bit of movement room there. That's as designed. And that's how you inspect the plate on there. If you have the other previous design or a hybrid, the plate may look like this one right here. Same thing, recesses go down, flat. It's going to be seen. This is exactly how it's going to mount in the card. Same thing, check. Now you might get it right here. You see an ever so slight rock. That's alright. But what you don't have is you don't have the plate standing off. And you can look and you can see that the core is the tallest item here. You can do the same check again with this. Just set it across. And you want the core to be the tallest item. And that's how you do a plate inspection. Now, if you have this style and you've got a heat sink like this, you've got to understand the orientation. The card's here. It's going to go like that. So then we'll flip it here. We already know that the machine side goes down. So this is going to be right here. And this will just set right on there. You can check, nice and flat. You can also physically inspect the plate put it on its edge. Make sure this entire area, the plate that contacts the heatsink, is always going to be completely flat. If for some reason it's not, you can try and bend it just ever so slightly. You don't want it to rock when it's on the card, or excuse me, when it's on the heatsink here. There's no rock. It sits nice and flush. And on here, it indexes to these screw holes, and there's no play. Now that's not going to be the case for all cards. Some cards, these right here, are thinner, and it will rock if it's sitting on here, or not rock, but be able to twist back and forth. However, when it's put onto the card, it's going to index, and it's not going to be able to touch anything. Now on most cards, the high points that stick above the memory is going to be these capacitors here. There's going to be a capacitor here. These capacitors here, these stick above the plane of the memory. There are some cards that have capacitors at about 0.1 millimeter under the memory through here. And these capacitors over here, if present, will also stick above it. This capacitor is below the memory, and you can use any type of true flat item. One good way to check is a razor blade. You can just slowly drag it, and anything that's sticking up will catch. Same thing, that cap sticks up, it catches. That cap is cleared. This row capacitor's here, this catches, and as does this one. This one you can really feel it. Some of them it's kind of questionable, but those have been taken into account. And this right here is the new version of the plate, and as you can see, it completely avoids this capacitor, this set of capacitors, and anything that's located over here. Different cards, they're all referenced, but they all have different features. And that's how you examine a card. Okay, I'm gonna do a test here to show how you can tell if something's catching or not. This is a piece of receipt paper. It's really thin. Put just a little bit of weight. And you can see it's retaining it. If it was loose, you know, you'd just be able to expect it to just move freely. So if you have any questions, is if something's being pinched or not. So we got these caps here. So I got a little bit of pressure, and it just slides right out. Nothing there. Same thing, check fit on the memory. Just give it just a little bit of pressure, and that is really biting it. And now it's just a test. You can check clearance. You can also visually inspect it. You don't have to clamp. You don't have to force it down. You just want to put a little bit of pressure on, as if the heatsink's going to be present. And looks good. It's just that simple. Okay, gonna start assembling the card here. I've got really soft 2.5 millimeter thermal pads. These are gonna be for the VRMs. Now for alignment, you can check the heatsink ahead of time. On this, I already know that they're gonna go about the profile of where the RAM is. That looks good. These are very soft, they will compress. Thermal pads for the inductors are 1 millimeter. This is a XC3 3080. Same thing on this set of VRMs. Getting a little bit of cotton fuzz there. So hold that guy down. It's right between the screw holes. So we are good. Centered up, gives it a little room to squish out. Same thing, if you're using pads that are a little too thick, don't put them too close to the inductors here. So we got nice room for it to squish out both sides. Soft thermal pads are really the best way to ensure good contact, especially with the VRMs. You want to be careful not to stretch the pads, because that'll thin it out. This one's a little longer than we need it. Just snip it, good to go. Same thing with this one, is a little longer than we need them. Go ahead and trim it. Some nice sharp scissors work quite well for this. Try to keep it on the inductors and out of the path of the VRMs, as these are going to go and smash down in there, and you don't want to catch the inductor thermal pads with the area for the VRM. I got thermal pads on. I'm going to just push them down just a little bit, try and get them sticking. The card's nice and clean. Cleaned it with alcohol on a Q-tip, and then dried it. You never want to put alcohol directly onto a card. You don't want liquid alcohol on there, because these are BGA, and the alcohol, the capillary action will just leach it right under there, and then you could end up having water under your memory or some other BGA component. And if you're going to use your card soon, you could end up having a short, cause some other issues. Put the thermal pads in place. Time to start with some thermal paste here. This is MX5. This is a giant tube. It's the first time using one of this size. Stick some out, kind of just move it around a little bit here. And this stuff is very gooey and stringy. Kind of a pain to work with, but it works. And this dispenser is not conducive for spreading it around. The 4 gram works really well. Just trying to get that string off. It's not really a string, but the stuff just keeps on stretching and stretching and stretching. Go ahead and pull back on the plunger just a skosh. Stop that from coming out. Cut up credit card, gift card here. And just start spreading it out a little bit. And then the remaining there, you want to try and keep that into the center. The whole point of doing a little bit of pre-spreading out here is if you put just a drop in the center, it's going to want to expand in a circular motion, and by pre-spreading it a little bit, going to promote it to go to more of a square pattern. It's still going to squeeze out a little bit, but just kind of work the remainder back into the center. Get the string out, and then we'll just continue on. I'm right-handed and I'm blocking the camera. Let's see what we can do here. And it doesn't have to be ultra precise. It's not like you're trying to fully cover it. It's a whole lot easier to use with the 4 gram. And right here on this one, got just a little too much. Trying to just scrape up some. And we'll deposit it right here. Still a bit much there. Just move it right here. Alright, set that down. Just take a look. side profile there. And just move some of this into the center. This guy's got it a little bit more. Let's move some of that over to there. Good enough. Now in the 3080s, where they've only got 10 gigs, and they've got these two open slots, I take a 1mm thermal pad, just a little piece. It's just a precautionary measure there, because as this comes down right here, the memory chip's about 1.1mm, and that'll just kind of keep it off. All of these contacts in there, those are all live. Pad's good. Go ahead and drop it right into place. And you can take a look and see if we're getting some good spread on it. See, it's starting to squeeze out a little bit. That's good, that's healthy, that's what you want. Now we'll go to the core. Nothing special here. Keep in mind that this is direct eye cooling, meaning the heatsink comes directly into contact with the silicon. So unlike CPUs with an IHS, you don't need a lot of paste here. You want to make sure the core is covered. I'll just kind of just squeeze out a little bit more and just keep dabbing. And there's plenty on there. Just use my little card here. And this, just take it and just start going up and down flat. That's my preferred method. You can do it how you like. I just like to make sure that I see paste on every bit of the core. This is going to make nice firm contact with the heatsink, and it's going to squeeze out all the extra, but I want to be sure that every square millimeter of this is covered. And just like on the memory chips, if there's any extra, just take that, just kind of move it around the center here. And that's just that simple. Now on this, the memory is on the edges here. There's nothing under this right here, so when we go and put our thermal paste on, we'll start over here. Now there's only this one chip over here, so there's really no reason to get crazy with it. Let's put that there. And we're staying over the memory. Don't have to go all the way over to the edge, it'll squeeze out. Just continue putting a line directly over the memory. Not a lot, don't need to spread it. I'll give this just a little bit more over here. Inspect it. This one a little thin there. Just go over it just like that. Just give it a little bit more. And same thing over here. Just give it a little more. Not gonna hurt a thing. Now, if you're considering getting these big tubes, this is a 20 gram. Personally, I like working with the 4 grams. Alright. We've got good little beads going on there. This is a pretty big amount right there. We'll just kind of drag it out a little bit. Alright, the card is ready to go back together. We've got our thermal pads. Thermal paste is done. Both sides are done. This is good to go. Now we'll put it back together. And we're going to go ahead and get this ready here. It's going to be going together just like this. And we'll just start plugging out our fan headers. There's a nice little click. Alright, those are in. Gotta be mindful of the RGB header. Normally this card is mining, so I usually don't plug them in, but for this I'll make an exception. And we're watching our holes. So that is in. We know this guy's going here and this guy's going here, and if we can keep an eye on at least 2 of them, we can come right down where we need to go. We can hold on to it and flip it. And all of our holes here, almost, and just like that. There we go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start the cross brace. Double check its orientation. Good to go. Go ahead and get one side started. Like to give that thing about halfway. Now this is what I consider the dangerous part, because you're going to load up quite a amount of force into the spring. The last thing you want to do is have a lot of force in it and slide and knock into one of these caps. There's hundreds of little components here. So I use my hand, get it in a position, push it down. Magnetic screwdriver for putting it in, not a good idea. Get it started there. A little bit more force on it. Okay, that's biting. And go over to here. Okay, that one's about halfway. Same thing here. Alright, now we'll go back. Go to this far corner. Just keep adding in some twists. And then on this guy, we'll go ahead and bring him all the way home. Go across from him. Okay. Tight, but not over tight. And we double check all of our holes here. It's looking good. I'm checking in there, making sure the inductors are making good contact. And they are. And on this side we have, this is one of the failures of design for EVGA, in my opinion. This is a screw hole here, a back plate here. So this screw hole is the only, there's only two areas where screws go from the back plate to the heatsink. There are no other screws that retain the heatsink. And the issue with that is that when this goes into the case and this heavy heatsink sits there over time, it's going to flex the board. And if you look, this has got a little bit of a flex to it, but that's because of the thermal pads on the VRMs that I used. You went a little thick with it. But that's an issue with these cards. What happens is you got this going through the PCB, and then there's nothing else to hold this heatsink. So this heatsink is supported here. It's attached to the PCB here, and there's nothing else. So when this goes into a case and you put your L bracket on there, you got force and it's trying to lift the PCB away, and there's nothing holding the heatsink to it. So this heavy heatsink puts all its force through the PCB from right here at the X brace. There should have been some screws into the heatsink down on this end. That's a huge oversight on EVGA's part. It's very disappointing. Hope to be making something to fix that. And you can see online, you'll see people who've installed this and had it in their case for a year or so, and right there is the VRM thermal pads, right here's the inductor, and this will be separated entirely, and none of these components are touching the heatsink at all. They're just free in the air. Well, let's just start going at it with our screws here. Try and get them all into position before tightening any of them down. Okay, that one's in. Again, the design, you see we've got screws here, we've got 4 screws here, and then we've got nothing on the back plate. There's no more screws going to the heatsink. These are the only 2 that go into the heatsink. Is these 2 areas right here. Not quite sure why or how that was accepted, but yeah, is what it is. And this is my first any type of instructional video, so hope you laugh with me. Let's just go ahead and start not tightening them up just yet, but we'll get them a little bit more than started. Alright, now we come to this side, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and get one of its small screws started here to hold this in position. We'll go for the middle one. And almost run that guy all the way home. So now the L bracket is retained. Going to try and get the nut into position here. I believe that's going to do it. Now the nut's on my finger. I felt it engage. I'm holding it, and it's most of the way screwed down. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Let's see if this, okay, this thing's holding focus. There's a nut. Put the nut on the fingertip. Set it against the PCB. Push the screw in, and you can feel it. There it goes. Alright. We've got both of those started. Now we'll put in our 2 remaining screws and tighten these guys down. Use the fingernail, get it lined up to the hole. Go ahead and start tightening these guys down. There are very few threads here. They just punch through and then thread where they punch through, so there's not much room to tighten these guys down, so we'll just kind of get them a little tight. Go back to the side. You don't need pliers or anything to hold this nut. You just need to go ahead and put your finger there. Go ahead and tighten that guy up, because these guys are nuts and not any kind of insert. You can go ahead and put some torque behind it. And we'll tighten our screws. These guys are good to go. I wish we had these 2 screws somewhere over here. Hopefully they don't make that mistake on the 4000s. Okay, we'll check our side profile here. We can take a peek in there and see what we've got. Squeeze out between the plates. We've got a little bit of squeeze out at the RAM. Looks good. And if you have a light, you can look in and see the side memory there. I can see it with this light. Looks good. Sorry, camera, it's not the easiest to show you. You can see our squeeze out from our single oddball memory chip there. Looks good. Looking on the inside, on the side one there, that one looks good too. Check the side profile. Looks good. One thing you can do when you have it apart, if you want to increase the appearance, if this is a card for your gaming system or it's going to be seen, you can Sharpie the PCB. Just take your black Sharpie when the board's apart and literally just Sharpie it black. Just that simple. It makes a pretty good appearance difference. You know, it's one of the little things you can do just to make the card yours. And she is back together. Our fans are connected. Looking in here, we got our inductors making good contact. Same on this other side. This is the side that'll start peeling away eventually. But we've got good smash on those pads. As you can see, the squeeze out looks good. Not too much, just enough. And RGB header is done. This card is good to go back into service.